Hello, Julie here and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to make 3 shaker cards. They're very simple shaker cards. I'm going to use dies to make them and the cards are very plain. I'm going to start with this mauve coloured card. I'm going to use the die, rose die that I bought from Jets, which is a local scrapbooking store here in Adelaide. I've cut the flower from white cardstock and I'm going to keep the frame part of the rose. So you get the frame and you also get the pieces that fill in the frame. I also cut the flower from some craft foam. I'm going to use this to put behind my flower because it's too hard to try and do it with foam tape. I'll push the centre pieces out of that flower later on. And now I'm going to put a piece of acetate. This is actually some laminating sheet that was left over from something that I laminated. So I'm going to cut that so that it fits over the cutout of the whole thing there that you can see in that piece of white cardstock. That's actually going to be the front of my card. So I'm going to cut this down to size a little and then I'm going to use some glue to attach that to the inside or the back of that piece of white cardstock. Once that is securely in place, I'm going to turn it over and on the actual front of the card I'm going to use my art glitter glue to place my die cut inside of the clear opening. That gives me the detail back into the flower. It's important to try and keep the glue off of the acetate. So now I'm going to take the shape that I cut out of the craft foam and I'm going to attach that to the back of the card front, so behind the acetate. Once again, being careful to try and not get any of the glue onto the acetate and making sure that I have got a complete seal around the edge of the shape, otherwise the glitter that I'm going to put into the shaker will escape. Sorry, my head gets in the way here in a moment, but I need to get over the top of it so I can line the mauve foam tape as close as possible over the white die cut so that you can't see the mauve from the front of the card. I've cut a piece of white cardstock that's going to go at the back of my shaker. Now I'm just adding the glitter to the shaker. Because the actual foam has got all the segments of the flower in it, the glitter's not going to all fall completely to the bottom. It's going to stay in the sections. The hardest part I find of shaker cards is to get the right amount of filling in them. I always seem to put too much and I didn't disappoint this time. So once again, it's got a lot of glitter in it and this makes it very hard for the glitter to move around. Once I've got the glitter in the shape, I have to then go around the whole outline of the flower with my art glitter glue to seal that glitter in so that when I put the white cardstock on top of it, there will be no leaks. So now that I have the front panel with the shaker section in it, I'm going to go ahead and create my card base. I start by cutting a piece of mauve cardstock that's 5 inches square. The card base itself is 10.5 inches by 5.25 inches, and then I score that at 5.25 inches, giving me a 5.25 inch square card base. So that gives me a basic card of 5.25 inches square with a 5-inch square piece of the mauve, and then my shaker element on top of that. I'm creating this as a birthday card, so I'm using this die to cut Happy Birthday. I've cut it 3 times from white cardstock and once from the mauve cardstock. I'm going to use my glue to layer each of those on top of each other, with the mauve one being on the top. This gives it some added depth, and it turns out to be about the thickness of chipboard. I use the liquid glue because you need to be able to wriggle it around a little bit to make sure that you get all of your layers completely on top of each other. Otherwise it doesn't look very neat at all. Now I'm ready to start assembling my card. I use my Versacolour black ink cube to ink around the edge of the white top layer and the mauve next layer down. Then I used double-sided tape to attach them to the card base. I use some of the foam around the edge, the 2 edges that are not as high as the shaker section, so that it sits flat. I use my glue to attach my greeting, which I put on a bit of an angle in the top left-hand section of the card. I thought I was going to leave the card like this, and I wasn't quite happy with it, so I went and had a look through my stash and I found a couple of purple flowers and a sprig of white leaves. So I used my hot glue gun to attach those to the card front. The flowers, are quite dimensional, so they needed the hot glue gun to keep them in place. I think those 2 little flowers just finished it off nicely. My second card is very simple and straightforward. I use this framed sunflower die to cut the image from some Mottily yellow card, and to the back of that I'm going to attach this piece of laminated sheet. I'm going to use my glitter glue, and I'm going to go around the edge and around the top edge of the flower, because I don't want the elements that are going to be in the shaker to be able to escape at all. Because this frame is very narrow and it'd be hard to get foam tape to stick to such a narrow edge, I've gone ahead and cut 3 more frames, 2 in a pale yellow and 1 in the same paper that I cut the top layer out of, and I'm going ahead and attaching them on top of each other, just like I did for the greeting on the previous card. Now that I've got all my layers stuck together, I'm going to attach that to the back of the acetate. This is the section that's going to hold my shaker element. I have to make sure that I've got a good connection with the glue all the way around so that my elements don't escape. Next I need to cut a piece of white cardstock to go as the background for my shaker. I'm going to use a yellow element in this shaker, so I want a white background so that they stand out. I cut the background to exactly the same size as the outside of the frame. Okay, so I'm going to use these little yellow, I don't even know what they are, they're like small circles. They're about a 1/16 of an inch in diameter, and they're an assortment of yellow and orange colours, very small. They're glittery, well, shiny, and I've got this packet that I've had for many years, so I just tipped them in there, and of course once again too many, but there you go. And so once I get all the elements in there, the little glittery things, I then attach the back of the shaker card with the liquid glue. Once again, being very careful to try and make sure that I get a seal all of the way around so that none of those little elements will leak out. Now that my shaker element is complete, I create my card base. The card base is 4 inches wide by 5 1/4 inches high, and I'm attaching my shaker front using double-sided tape. For the greeting on this card, I had a branding strip that had some greetings along the bottom, so I decided to use that. For this one I'm going to use best wishes. I'm going to cut that down, ink around the edge of it with my black ink pad, and attach it to my card using foam. So that completes our second card. Very simple but quite effective, I think. Now we're going to start with our last card for today. Once again, this is using a die cut to make our shaker. I'm using this heart die. I'm going to cut 2 of those out of a piece of cardstock, white cardstock, and I'm going to cut them out of that pinky goldy paper that you can see there. I created that paper from white cardstock, and I will put a link to the video that shows how to make that in the description box if you wanted to have a look at that. But I cut the 2 hearts, or actually cut 3 hearts out of it, and now I'm putting my acetate at the back of my 2 hearts that have been cut out of the front panel. Once again, I put a bead of glue around the complete outside of the hearts because I don't want anything to be escaping, and I also ran a bead of glue around the outer edge of the acetate just to keep it in place. I have cut the heart from white cardstock 6 times because I'm going to layer those 3 on each one to make my little well that's going to hold my glitter. So I go ahead with my glue and attach 3 of the white ones on top of each other and try to make sure that I get them lined up perfectly. I made a mistake and stuck the pink hearts on top of the white ones, so I had to go and cut 2 more of the pink hearts. I'm going to attach the 2 pink hearts to the top, so the top of the acetate and the front of the card. Once I've got those attached, I turn the card front over and attach the layered hearts to the back of the acetate to hold my glitter. Once again, I can't stress enough just how important it is to make sure that you have a complete seal around the outside of your shape, and to try and minimise as best as you can the amount of glue that you get on your acetate, because that's really hard to get off. Now I'm going to add my glitter. All of the glitter that I've used on this on these cards came from my mother. She had a clean out of her craft stuff and gave me this glitter, so I'm not sure where it came from or whatever, but it's called Celebrations of Australia, and it's light multi is the colour. Anyway, I put that into my hearts, and this time I managed not to put too much. I think I actually didn't put enough, but anyway, can't win all the time. So I put the glitter in, and then I use my glue to go around the edge and then attach my white panel behind it to make sure that all of the glitter stays in place. Now my shaker panel's complete. I add some foam to the side that hasn't got the shaker on it, so that when I attach it to the card base it's going to sit nice and flat. I have cut a card base that is 5¼ inches square, and this panel with the shaker in it is 5 inches square, so there will be a little border all the way around. I do use my black ink pad to ink around the edge of this 5-inch panel before I attach it to the card base. I'm going to add a third element to my card front, so I have cut another heart and I'm using my glue to attach that to the front between the other two and off to the left. And I also add the centre section of the die cut. The branding strip that I used previously had a greeting on it that said Happy Anniversary, and I thought with the heart shapes that would be quite a good greeting for this card. So once again I trimmed it down. This time though I mounted it on a piece of the pink paper, the same as the hearts were cut out of, before I used some foam to attach it to the front of the card. I attached it over the top of the third heart that I've just added. So that's our 3 cards for today. Simple shaker cards used making dies. Very effective, I think. I hope you've enjoyed watching my video, and perhaps you'd like to try making one of these yourself. They're not very hard, just a little bit fiddly with that glue. If you've enjoyed my video, please subscribe and click the bell so that you'll be notified each time I upload a new video. And thank you for being here with me today.